Since the events of last Wednesday, I have spoken quite a bit about it, but the entire time I have been waiting here at the Damage Report to speak to one individual, waiting for his return to the show, the Jacob Borowski Professor of Philosophy at Yale University and author of How Fascism Works. Jason Stanley returns to the show. Jason, how you doing?
Well, I would wish I could say good, but here it is. So,
yeah. I'm assuming busy. I assume you've been quite busy for the last week.
Unfortunately, I wish I was not busy. But
well, you wrote the book on how fascism works, and over the last 2 years, I actually rewatched our interviews. We've spoken 3 or 4 times, and now watching what you had said you expected to happen after the events of last week, it really does feel like we were sort of always moving to this point. But before we launch into all of it, I'm curious, as Wednesday was developing, what were you thinking as it was going on?
I'd been expecting it. So I mean, when you look at the literature on when leaders call for political violence against their opponents, what you see is there's always a years-long lag between when political rhetoric becomes violent, when you start calling your political opponents traitors, when you start calling for them to be violently punished, attacked, when you label them as dangers to the future of your nation. There's always a lag of years between that and mass violence. So how long that lag differs from country to country. I have a friend who survived the Rwandan genocide, not to compare what's going on to that, but just the political violence aspect. And I spoke to her once and she said, well, they were talking about Tutsis as snakes and cockroaches, but nothing was happening. So we had nothing happening here. I mean, we had a lot happening, but we didn't have this mass political violence happening. But when the president of the United States is calling for open rebellion, at some point, someone's gonna act. So when I saw that crowd in front of the White House, and I was watching the entire time with my children, as it happens, my young children, and I was explaining to them, this is what happens when you call your opponents traitors, you call for revolution. This is what happens, and you're watching a lesson in history.
I'm curious about that lag that you're talking about, and I'm wondering, does it work in the opposite direction? Because he, since that event, has only appeared publicly literally the morning that we're recording this. And he did say multiple times, I want no violence, there can't be any violence. He did threaten social media companies and he threatened congressional leaders with retribution if they impeach him. But he did say several times he doesn't want any violence. So if you're out there as one of his followers and he's saying that, how do you interpret that message, assuming you get it?
So the philosopher of language, Jennifer Saul, has a concept that she calls fig leaf. And she says that she came up thinking about Donald Trump's rhetoric. And she coined it when he made the comment when he first ran for office and said Mexicans are gang members, they're rapists, and I assume some are good people. And she said what Donald Trump does is he says something and then he takes it back at the end, so that you can then not, so then he can not be blamed for the things he clearly said. So Donald Trump today said that everything he said was completely appropriate. What is it that he said? He said it's they're stealing the election. You can't be peaceful. You have to be, he said all sorts of things that can't be read in any other way than by calling for, like what we saw on January 6th. So it is part of his rhetorical tactics, as Jennifer Saul has shown, that he regularly does this. He regularly, at the end of doing that, says, okay, I'm not really saying that.
Yeah, oh geez. He also said, like the afternoon or night of the day, he said in a video, to those people, I love you, you're very special people. It was quite sweet. It was like he was speaking to a lover of many years, but speaking to
his followers, his children. It's a leader. Donald Trump is an expert in mass politics. He's a very skilled mass political speaker. This is why it's not, though the Republican Party has figures. I mean, the Republican Party has a lot of figures who are now defending and standing up against that, to their credit. But it has some people like Ted Cruz, Senator Cruz, and Senator Hawley, Republican Party elites, just elites, who are trying to follow in President Trump's footsteps. But I don't know if they can do that kind of trick that you just said. I don't know if they have the same rhetorical skills to bond with their audiences.
So I think you're quite right to point out there are some in the Republican Party, including Mitch McConnell, said the election's over, Biden won, and all of that. But then at the same time, like, they cleared out all of the people who attacked the Capitol, and then Hawley and Cruz went back in and they tried to pursue politically the same thing that those attackers had tried to pursue with violence. So you have this split. And at the same time, the Democrats are saying we now need to make an example of Trump or stop him from exercising power in the future by impeaching him. And there are all these Republicans who are saying that would be divisive. Even people who've criticized Trump for being involved in Wednesday's thing are saying, let's not impeach him though. And you had a tweet where you said it was post-Civil War calls for unity that led to Jim Crow. They're all calling for unity and no division right now. Tell me a little bit about that tweet and what you think might happen if Trump is allowed to just go off with no consequences.
So let's first begin by pointing out it's not just Trump. Senator Hawley and Senator Cruz, we're talking about two people who are the elite of the elite. I went to the State University of New York at Stony Brook, paid my own way through college. I'm a professor now, but Josh Hawley is a banker's son. He went to Stanford University and Yale Law School. He didn't go to state schools like I did. Ted Cruz went to Princeton. He's the runner-up of the national runner-up or the top college debater. These are the elite of the elite. These are among those of us these are people born between third base and home. And so these are the elite's elite. And these elites have taken on this, so they know better. They obviously know better. So we're not talking Tommy Tuberville here, who thought the Second World War was a fight against socialism. We're talking about people born to the elite, groomed in the highest, best universities in the world. Now explicitly endorsing the idea that democracy is irrelevant. No election in which a Republican loses is valid. And so that's very disturbing, and that needs to be called out, and it's a disturbing development. And if we don't stop it and call it out and do something, then it's a social and political movement moving into the future. Let's look back at our America's past and see what happened in the Civil War. The Reconstruction was a period of around a decade when Black Americans in the South were able to vote and hold office. For people of my generation, we've seen, we remember first Black congressmen since Reconstruction, because during Reconstruction there were many Black congresspeople. So how did Reconstruction end? Reconstruction ended when in the mid-1870s, 1876, 1877, it was decided as part of a compromise that we want to unify the South and the North and get over the wounds of the Civil War, remove federal troops from the South, which was completely known would lead immediately to no more Black voting. And Black Americans in the South couldn't vote for 90 years. And that's because of the desire to unify the country. Who will suffer now from the desire to unify the country? We all will suffer. Democracy will suffer, because unifying without accountability means a strong signal, especially to the elites of our country, the Senator Hawleys and Senator Cruz, from the elite class, educated in the elite universities, to the elites that their behavior will go unpunished. So democracy will lose. And we saw this really, we're reaping, in my view, the consequences of President Obama's failure to do accountability in 2008 with a financial crisis and the Iraq war and the torture regime. The message then was, it doesn't matter what you do, what sort of violations you do. You can lie to the American people, you can cheat us out of money as the bankers did, and there are no consequences. And to have no consequences again, well, we'll have a social and political movement that will make Trumpism seem mild by comparison, is my worry.
Yeah, the issue with the philosophy of looking forward, not backwards, is sometimes someone's behind you. Sometimes a lot of someone's are behind you.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.